What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome to Not Your Status Quo's The Clone Wars Season 7, Episode 8 review with proper social distancing. This is the way.
This is the way.
And remember, there will be spoilers.
And please remind all your friends to watch our videos and hit the like button and show us that you like our content.
And hey, if you get a chance, make sure you hit that subscribe button too.
Episode 8, Together Again. So back in the cell, the girls are talking about how to escape, and Ahsoka says she has a plan, but says it's better if they don't know what it is. You know, Rafa is a little skeptical, but Ahsoka says they just need to trust each other, and they're going to get out. You know, then they get kind of pulled into the Pikes throne room? I don't really know what to call it.
Prisoner interrogation room.
It does kind of look like a throne room in a way. I mean, because he's sitting there in a chair and he's like king of the Pikes or whatever, I guess. I don't really know what the heck's going on. But yeah, you know, I do want to say it is kind of ironic that we're reviewing an episode called Together Again, and yet we clearly are not.
Right.
What do you mean clearly or not? We're all in the same room.
We're all here. What the heck? Yeah, the Pikes in the last few episodes have really, showed that they're not really good at keeping people in their cells. And when they recapture them, they just throw them back in the cell. No harm, no foul. They're really not punishing them for leaving the cell.
I've noticed this in the Star Wars universe. That seems to be like a common thing where the bad guys aren't always the worst people, where you've got them like, okay, we're going to put you in the cell and we're going to set our phasers to stun. You notice that later on in this episode when they're shooting at them, they're just, they've set their faces to stun. And it seems like the Jedi are like really super quick to like just lightsaber people in half. Just a little thing that I noted.
But I did, they do get to something else later that I won't, I don't want to talk about yet. But there's something else in there that goes to your point.
And, while they're in that throne room, Ahsoka says she wants to make a deal alone. And Ahsoka tells Krim that they hid the spice off-world, but she doesn't know where. And she suggests that the Pikes send them to send the girls to go retrieve the spice, giving them one rotation to return, and Ahsoka will tell them the location of their family. Krim asks what she gets out of the deal, and Ahsoka replies, just a small percentage of the value of the spice shipment. And as they leave, Rafa turns to Ahsoka and says, I won't forget this.
And I like how Ahsoka, like, once again, spells out, like, very loud, very slowly, trust me. Because nobody is going to catch on to her.
Right.
Obvious.
Well, those Pikes, they're not obviously not the smartest beings in the universe.
Yeah, clearly not.
All right. And Rafa gets it right away. And when she says I won't forget this, I think she's doing the same thing with Ahsoka. I won't forget you. I'll come back for you. I think that's what she was trying to say.
Yeah, I agree 100%. She was letting Ahsoka know, hey, I'm going to trust you and I'm going to come back for you. Thanks for getting us off world, basically. And, once they leave, the one guy tells Krim that this is a deception, and Krim knows, but he doesn't have much choice. His life depends on the return of the spice as much as theirs. And his lieutenant asks if he will find out, and Krim replies that he knows. He always knows.
And I think we know exactly who they're talking about. Kind of reminds me of a certain episode back in season 5.
Yeah, and if they weren't so disconnected, like with season 7 being so disconnected from the rest of the series, I think it would be really obvious to everybody who they were talking about.
I think
don't worry. They spell it out for you later on in this episode, just in case you forgot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Trace and Rafa aboard the Silver Angel and take off, and they're watched by those 3 Mandalorians, Ursa Wren, and tells Bo-Katan that she did not scan the Jedi on the ship. And Bo-Katan wants to know as soon as Ahsoka leaves the Citadel. So they're definitely, keeping an eye out for her and making sure that they don't lose track of her, because they know that she's going to be a potentially good ally coming up. And then this is Trace and Rafa are discussing what happened, and Trace can't understand why Ahsoka threatened to give their family up to the Pikes. As she knows we have no family, and Rafa was like the little a lot more street smart, not as naive. Is like, well, that's the point. Ahsoka gave herself up to release them. And then I like this, very Han Solo-esque. And if she thinks she's going to escape on her own without my help, well, she's got another thing coming.
Oh
Right.
yeah, I totally caught that. She was trying to make an excuse so it doesn't sound like she's being nice to me. Now, oh, I got to make sure that she can't hold this over my head.
Exactly. Yep.
Mhm.
And then, Trace and Rafa fly to a Pike loading facility where like Rafa calls ahead and tells them, get a transport, a transport is on the way for a spice pickup. They land and the worker's like, we don't have any order for this. And Rafa tries to bully him, tells him it's a rare special order from up top. And then what my favorite surprise of this episode is a Bosk, a Transdojan, arrives and just, she tries to start a fight and he's a lot stronger than her.
Uh-huh.
And finally gets to a point where he tries to throw her off this thing and she kind of lifts up and they drop the ship. They drop what they're standing on and he falls, to his death. And they end up leaving with the spice. But, as I'm watching this, I just kept thinking, do they not think the Pikes are, hey, some ship just landed and stole 3, craters of spice?
Are you sure that was on? Because I thought they went back to Kessel to get that and then came back.
They did, yeah. They went back to Kessel.
But that was the Pikes facility. I took it as.
It
I don't know.
might be.
I took it as the same people they went to originally.
Yeah, that's
But
what
that
I
wasn't
thought
the
they
same
did.
people that loaded it before.
No, but they have different crews. I loved it when she turned around and the boss was there, and she looked down, and then she looked up, and he's right there. That was a laugh out loud moment for me.
I gotta say, it was really cringy for me. I was trudging through that part of the episode because I was just like, okay, look, I get that they're both kind of naive, both of the sisters. Like they've never really done anything this big before. They're clearly both not great at thinking on their feet. But oh man, okay, so they can't really fight. They're not great at getting themselves out of jams that well. Like they kind of accidented their way through that whole situation, and I think they got really lucky.
It almost kind of reminded me of how Jar Jar just kind of fumbled his
Yes,
way through.
yes, that was my feeling during that whole scene. I was just like, okay, all right. I mean, like I knew they were going to get through it because that's how this episode was going to go. But
Definitely not as bad as Jar Jar, but
No, it was definitely
nonetheless.
not to the nth degree like Jar Jar was, but at least still the same. And then we go back and they see Ahsoka using her Jedi powers to get out of the cell, and then she kind of sneaks over to the refinery where the Pikes are processing the spice, and they just have like tons of ammo just sitting out. And she grabs a bunch of thermal detonators. Then she makes her way to the refinery, placing detonators on a bunch of the silos. And then she hears Krim's voice and looks up to see him speaking to a hologram of Maul.
So, real quick, Dave, is that what you were going to talk about before when we were talking about like how like easygoing these bad guys are?
Yeah.
The fact that they leave weapons right out in the open and a bunch of explosives just there for the taking.
Yeah, I mean, they're not expecting people to break out and get into their rooms, with their ammunition and everything. But I mean, come on, you know what I mean?
Krim assures Maul that they can proceed as planned despite the delay. Maul says that, though the Pikes are a small piece of the mechanism that he has designed, their failure jeopardizes everything. And, Krim responds that the Republic is cracking down on his operations and had recently raided a shipment on Coruscant. Maul asks if the Jedi were involved, and Krim says none of his men made it out, which Maul says means they were. He tells Krim that if there are any more delays, Crimson Dawn would love to take over their operations, which was a nice call out to Solo and Maul's appearance there. A guard arrives and tells them that the prisoner had escaped. Then you see Ahsoka and she saw this whole thing, and she makes her way to a control room to access the transmission log, which reveals Maul is on Mandalore. Dun, dun,
So
dun.
I do want to point something out that I thought was kind of a neat little Easter egg. They've established in the new movie series that people strong with the Force can use their Force powers via hologram. Because Snoke did it to Hutch, or what was his name?
Yeah, that's Yeah, I think it's Hutch.
General Hutch, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So Snoke did it to him. And you could tell for a minute when Maul was on the hologram and Ahsoka was sneaking around, he stopped for a minute and he was looking in her direction. I think he sensed her. I think he knew that she was there. And I think that just kind of goes to prove that people who are strong in the Force, whether it's light or dark, I think they can use their Force through video somehow.
It's almost like their presence is with the hologram.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he walked over to the edge of the railing and looked around a little bit, and then he just turned around and just said, forget it. Maybe he's not as attuned as like Anakin is, who could probably detect her through something like that. But he's Maul. He doesn't have as much Force power. So he felt something, but not enough to, maybe it wasn't anything, in his head. And then he just said, all right, I'm out of here.
And then the Pikes return and they surround Ahsoka, and she uses the Force to kind of push him away. And although she is eventually outnumbered and overwhelmed, he asks her if the other two were Jedi as well, which Ahsoka denies. He says the Jedi Council will regret sending her here, and they stun her and return her to her cell. And that's what Doug was talking about earlier, where they're using their stuns. Mm-hmm. But I also think they were kind of doing that just because they kind of needed information from them. They were eventually going to kill them, but they did need information because if they lost, we're finding out if they would have lost the spice, they're going to lose the whole spice trade in that criminal syndicate that Maul has set up. And then Krim thanks Ahsoka for her perfect timing, saying her execution will restore the Pike's reputation. And then Trace and Rafa enter, saying they have returned with the spice. Krim says he knows they're working for the Republic and the Jedi Ahsoka. And that's when the sisters are pretty shocked to learn that Ahsoka's the Jedi and demand to know why she kept it from them. And as they argue,
it's like, oh my God, what?
Hey, that super jump you did.
Right.
Well, it's making sense.
I agree with Ahsoka. This isn't the time. They're about to get killed. It's not the time to talk about this kind of thing.
Very true. And as they're arguing, the detonators explode, and it's shaking the room and stunning all the Pikes. And Ahsoka, Rafa, and Trace race to the landing platform. They got there really quick since it took so long before, but we don't need to talk about that. They board the Silver Angel and are pursued by 3 Pike patrol ships. Ahsoka says she is sorry for not telling them she is a Jedi, and Rafa says, well, she must use her powers and skills to shoot down their pursuers. Ahsoka takes the gun, shooting down 2 ships, but several hits from the last one destroys the cannon and the rear deflector shield, so Trace pilots the ship around and flies right at the last Pike ship, head on, and as it swerves to dodge them, crashes into a mountain. This is where I really thought we were going to see the Mandalorians help out and blast that last ship. But
I kind of thought so too.
They didn't, because it shows that they're independent, and the Mandalorians are going to make sure that you earn whatever loyalty, or if they're going to help you out, you got to earn it. So if they made it out of there on their own, then they've earned their respect.
No, absolutely, because you see as they're heading off into space, the Mandalorians are right behind them. So I think you're right, Dave. I think they're more, okay, let's make sure these potential allies are worth being our allies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was either going to be the Mandalorians that were going to help him out, or I kind of thought they were going to pull a move like in The Force Awakens when when Rey spun the Millennium Falcon around after the gun was like broken, flipped it upside down, so they could get a shot off. I thought they were going to pull something like that. But, I mean, it was still fun.
No, I'm with you, because when they kept saying the rear cannon is destroyed, I kept thinking, okay, they're going to use the front cannon.
Mm-hmm.
And then they arrive at Coruscant, and the Mandalorians enter, and Bo-Katan, removes her helmet, telling her not to worry as Death Watch is gone.
This is not the way.
This is definitely not the way.
Or at least maybe it's the way for this particular clan. So we're kind of talking a little bit about that, because the fact that in The Mandalorian, they kind of specify that they don't remove their helmets, but they also only go out like one at a time. I think that might just be their particular religious sect, that particular clan. And I think it might have evolved from Bo-Katan and the rest of Death Watch.
I think you're right. I think this kind of came about because of what happened to Mandalore. We know that the Republic has a Siege of Mandalore. We know later on the Empire has a Siege of Mandalore. And this is how they protect themselves now. They're like a radical set. of the Mandalorians. You don't take your helmet off. And it could even be because Din Djarin isn't necessarily a native of Mandalore. Maybe that's something that happens when you become a Mandalorian, but aren't native to Mandalore.
It'll be interesting to see if they address that in the Mandalorian season 2 at all at any point.
Well, I'm really hoping that the way that this ends with Ahsoka and the Death Watch here now realizing they've got a common enemy. As I point out, she shows him the hologram of Maul. I'm kind of hoping this leads up into this, just showing us what happened, like maybe leading up, because I believe they were saying in The Mandalorian, I think I read it like on a wiki page or something, that when Din Djarin was saved, it was during the period of the Clone Wars, or sometime shortly after.
No, he definitely was, because you see the battle droids.
Yeah, and those are separatist droids, aren't they?
They were, yes, absolutely. So we know that Din Djarin was rescued during the Siege of Mandalore from the Republic, so we definitely could see something on that. Bo-Katan, tells Ahsoka they need her help, and she has 5 minutes to decide. She's kind of talking with Trace and Rafa, and they're like, you got to go do it. She's afraid she might go down the path of being a Jedi again. But Rafa says, that is basically who she's meant to be. And Ahsoka agrees, and she decides to leave her bike with her sisters just in case, and then boards the Mandalorian ship, which for appointment viewing, this has me hooked for next Friday already. I was like, this episode to me was borderline filler episode again. I mean, we saw some good stuff. We saw Maul finally, but for the most part, it was just sort of the status quo, unfortunately. You kind of, a lot of easy things to predict and kind of the Jar Jar stuff with them on the landing platform, But man, that last scene, her taking off to go to Mandalore, certainly has me hooked for next week already.
Yeah, I do agree.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I kind of agree with basically what you said, that I liked parts of this episode. I liked getting to see Maul again. Just like what I say with Anakin in the Clone Wars, I think their presentation of Maul is by far my favorite. I mean, it's great, and he was not done justice in the Phantom Menace, and I really love what they've done to this character. It's so much character building.
And sadly, we won't, hopefully we will, but we won't get to see any follow-up from Solo because, here, spoiler alert, I'm very sorry. If you have not seen Solo, if you haven't, go see it, watch our videos on it because it's a really good movie. I think Maul was going to play a big part in Solo 2 after you see that end.
Yeah, and one of the other things I liked at the end of this episode was when Rafa was saying, you are a Jedi, that's what you're meant to be. At least that's what I pictured Jedi to be, So Ahsoka not being the actual Jedi or the Sith, becoming what we would call the Skywalker,
Yeah, and I think that's what Ahsoka thinks that a Jedi should be too.
Yeah, and that's what I think the universe, not so straight-laced with all their values, that they can see into situations and do what's right instead of like having this overall view that maybe Rafa has, And incidentally, we know about the casting of Ahsoka in The Mandalorian, and I was thinking if this Rafa character ever developed into somebody else besides this, I think that would be, in my personal opinion, a better role for Rosario Dawson. I mentioned this to you guys earlier, but after watching this episode and then seeing the last 4 episodes, how she developed, I think that would be more of a fit for her. But, I'm not the casting director. That's just my opinion.
And we did find out this week that the Rosario Dawson contract supposedly is for multiple Disney Plus shows. So we are probably getting her in more stuff, which is good to me. I mean, I think, this whole Ahsoka's walkabout arc, while it wasn't the best ever in the Clone Wars, we did see Ahsoka kind of come to finally realize that what she is honestly what the Jedi should be. So even though she's not part of the Jedi Order, she really is what they should be. And I thought that was really well done. And as long as, I hope that plays out in the Siege of Mandalore and we see her being a shining example of what Jedi should be and maybe, change some minds Unfortunately, it won't change Anakin's. We know kind of where he leads, but I kind of liked her plot line through this whole thing, even though the arc, even though some of the episodes were just kind of good, not great. I think overall it really got the point across where Ahsoka's character is going.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely why I wanted to see more of Ahsoka. She can really, she's really taken the force powers in a different direction that no other character has.
Yeah, I have to totally agree with you guys. Absolutely, yeah. She's probably one of my favorite characters, and I am really looking forward to seeing how they portray her in a live action universe. Don't know if it'll work completely, but we'll see.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. We haven't seen her in live action, and Shakti was in Attack of the Clones, and she looked pretty good. So let's hope that carries over. But what did you guys all think? Did you like this episode? What did you think as the arc overall? Is season 7, been amazing for you? Has it just been blah? Has it just been mediocre? What do you guys think? Share it in the comments. Remember, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel if you like what we do.
See y'all next time.